Local 4 News begins right now with a breaking news alert.
And this is a special edition of Live in the D following breaking news. The search is on for this armed prisoner who attacked a Wayne County Sheriff's deputy and escaped. You're looking live at the police chopper searching for him now.
This is very important. Take a very close look at your screen right now. This is the man police are looking for. His name, Apprehension. He's also known as Derek White. He has already assaulted a deputy, carjacked a woman. He is still on the run. He is considered armed and dangerous. Now, as we said, these are live pictures from Sky 4 right now over the scene where police continue their search for Pearson. At this point, he is believed to be on foot.
Now, we have a team of reporters who have been all over this story from the moment it began this morning. Sean Lay was on assignment at the Hall of Justice when the pandemonium broke out there. We will talk with him in a moment. But first, let's go to the east side and Rod Maloney, who is near the scene of where the carjacked vehicle was dumped and where this search is ongoing. Rod?
Yes, Guy, we're at Helen and East Jefferson here in the city of Detroit, and I'll just step out of the way here so you can see they have the command post set up here. But it was actually 2 blocks over on, let's see here, I'm trying to remember what street it was. It was Concord Street that the vehicle was ditched, and then the belief is by the scent that the canine was able to pick up that they came this way in this direction a couple of blocks, and so they've concentrated the command post here. There is also the Homeland Security helicopter flying at almost treetop level, very low, but it's the Homeland Security helicopter helping the police department, Detroit PD, and also the Wayne County Sheriff's Office with this search of this neighborhood where they believe the suspect, again, his name Apprehension, going by the alias of Derek White, is located. Now, we talked to Chief Craig just a couple of minutes ago, and he gave us this about where this investigation is and who this guy is and why they want to get him.
Number one is we want to get this dangerous individual off the streets, and we'll stay in this area as long as it's necessary to make sure we apprehend him.
Now, one of the things that we have seen here is that behind me here, the street on the far end of that, where we're standing right now, and if I'll pull up my map here, it would actually be East Lafayette near Grand Boulevard. They have that street blocked off, and pretty much every street going in the direction toward downtown, which would be westbound, would be where they're blocking off streets here. And they've got vehicles with lots of police officers in them, like 2 in the front, 2 in the back, looking at every single movement that happens in the area, looking to find this guy. And so they've got a lot of resources into this thing. It's a cooperative effort, a lot of different police agencies helping out here because one of their own has been hurt. The deputy with the 36th District stabbed in the neck, and then this man ran away, carjacked a car, and then headed out and ended up a couple of blocks over here. And we're still trying to sort out what specifically happened there because we had video there. We were over there earlier where the carjacked car, it was a minivan, got stuck in the woods, and there was another car next to it, and police were investigating and asking a couple of women who apparently were in these vehicles what was going on. We attempted to talk to them, and we were told it's a live crime scene, could not find out. So that's something we'll certainly go to work on later in the day. But for now, it's just trying to find this guy. Again, his name, Apprehension, a.k.a. Derek White.
I can't even imagine how fearful that must be living in that area, knowing that that individual could be there hiding out.
And how desperate he is. So desperate that he attacked a deputy and escaped. Thanks so much. Sean Lay was actually on assignment at the Frank Murphy Hall of Justice when all of this broke loose. First on the scene, somewhat by accident. Sean, you saw it from the get-go, and it was chaotic.
As a matter of fact, we were standing right here getting our equipment together when deputies ran past us. We ran with them. We're going to show you our exclusive video here in a moment. But first, let me update you on what's happening right now. Look at this line because the business of the court here at Frank Murphy Hall of Justice has to continue. It's been put on hold after the lockdown here right at 8:15 this morning when this escape took place. So these folks are trying to get back in. The courthouse has reopened, and they're trying to get people screened carefully through security here so they can get in, and so judges can start their dockets here in what is a very, very busy day. More on that in just a moment. But as you mentioned, it was exactly 8:15. We're standing right here. Deputies come flying out, running out of the courthouse with guns drawn, and we went with them. Take a look. Only local 4 cameras are there and rolling to capture the chaos in the streets of downtown Detroit as the incident began. You can watch the frantic search unfold for an armed and dangerous suspect. Police identifying him as 25-year-old Derek White. He had a 9 a.m. sentencing on the 7th floor before Judge Dana Hathaway today for carjacking and other violent crimes, and he had a plan that he wasn't going to prison today. White was taken from jail to court in shackles, being escorted by one unarmed Wayne County Sheriff's deputy. When the deputy uncuffed White, White pulled out a comb sharpened into a shiv or a knife, and he stabbed the deputy.
The inmate, as he was unhandcuffed and being placed in his holding cell, overcame the deputy, stabbed him several times in the neck.
White then was somehow able to undress that deputy, put his uniform on, take an elevator down to the ground floor, and run out without any other deputy or court official hearing the attack or seeing the escape. Blocks away, White carjacked a driver in front of the old Detroit Police Headquarters and sped east. He dumped that van at Concord and Lafayette and ran.
To get this information out sooner than later, because we're talking about a dangerous suspect in the community, and so we wanted to get his picture out and any information. So anyone having information concerning this suspect, please call the Detroit Police Department or Wayne County Sheriff Department.
All right, back here live outside Frank Murphy Courthouse here now. Let's be very clear and get the latest information now. You're looking at one of the first pictures we've seen of this guy, alias Derek White, but real name Abraham Pearson. So let's stick with Abraham Pearson for a moment. And we also have a secondary picture from the Michigan Department of Corrections from an earlier violation of Pearson. So Abraham Pearson, that's the guy police are looking for right now, can look like this or look like this. So 2 different looks here. We believe this look here is probably the latest look due to his hairstyle as well. Something else live I want to show you behind the courthouse here, right over this way. Now, about an hour ago, there was a very aggressive scene here by the Wayne County Sheriff's Office and other law enforcement to set up shop an investigation behind the courthouse. That was for them to, again, sweep the courthouse to make sure it was free of anyone else who could have been a part of this, anyone else who may have stashed a weapon inside, and also their investigation about how in the world a shackled prisoner could get out of custody and stab a sheriff's deputy. Number one, Guy and Karen, we're hearing that deputy over at the hospital stabbed several times in the neck with that sharp comb. He is okay, going to be okay. Number two, that deputy was by himself. The sheriff tells me that those deputies are unarmed, and unarmed for a reason, because they're escorting prisoners. They don't want to give prisoners access to any guns, so the deputy is unarmed. He was just escorting Pearson and 2 others. So he is in charge of 3 different shackled prisoners, took them up to the 7th floor. As he's unshackling them again in a room by himself, that's when Pearson was able to get his hands free. He pulled out his shiv and stabbed that deputy. So the sheriff says it's a staffing issue, why only 1 deputy would be in charge of 3 different prisoners, and something like this possibly bound to happen here, and today it did happen. Again, the very latest, this line, the court continues here. People are going to have to wait patiently to go through security to get inside to get the business of the court going as well. Karen and Guy.
Sean, you did mention that the Wayne County Sheriff's Department set up that special unit to see if perhaps he had any help in this or anyone was there to aid him. I know we mentioned that he was perhaps in a gang. Have you gotten any word on if there was any key evidence or anything that may have tied him with some help from the outside?
Sure. I asked the sheriff that specifically. Did he have any help, or did the 2 others that were with Pearson help him while all this was going on? The sheriff said he didn't have that information right now and probably didn't believe so. Maybe Pearson was acting alone. The other question I asked the sheriff was, we've all been in these courtrooms, Karen. I know you have as well. Guy has as well. Deputies are all over the place. You've got them as bailiffs, as court officers, as security guards. And when someone is sentenced, there's more than 1 person in that area. What we didn't know today, what we learned, is that we knew that there's a holding area next door to the judge's office, and that's right behind the bench. You can't see it. It's through a door there. They unshackle someone, bring them before the bench. We didn't know what goes on back there, that only 1 deputy would be in charge of the people back there getting ready to face a judge. That's interesting as well.
It is. Very frightening, too, and to realize the cutbacks, and this is what we're dealing with.
Right, and yet a lot of questions about why you would unshackle a prisoner that you know is going to be going right back into prison anyway. It's not like it would influence the decision of a conviction or anything like that. Sean, thanks so much. We know we'll have much more on these staffing issues. Let's get out to Lauren Podell. Imagine seeing someone in a Wayne County deputy
Right.
shirt carjacking somebody. That's what folks witnessed this morning.
Right, and they wouldn't know exactly what was going on. Was it a carjacking or did they need that car? Lauren Padella has been working that side of the story. You've been talking to some witnesses who saw this. Lauren, what did they say about what they saw?
Karen and Guy, this is another area that the Wayne County Sheriff's Department has been swarmed around all morning. Take a look. I'm in the Metropolitan parking lot along Beaubien, right by the Harbor House, right across the street from the old police headquarters. And you can see, take one look. This is packed. It's a busy parking lot, and there's no wonder why there were so many witnesses who saw Abraham Pearson, otherwise known as Derek White, walk through this parking lot. Now, again, they saw him in a dirty white T-shirt, but with sheriff deputy pants on, and the next thing they knew, they heard screaming from one of the people parked in this lot.
He doesn't look like a sheriff officer.
This is the man Fayasuddin saw walking through the Metropolitan parking lot around 8:30 this morning, dressed as a Wayne County Sheriff deputy.
He wore the sheriff pants, and he wear the dirty white shirt, and he have a shirt for sheriff.
It was 25-year-old Derek White who had just escaped from the Frank Murphy Hall of Justice. Fayaz said the man was walking towards the old police headquarters on Beaubien through the parking lot when he carjacked a woman. Teresa was parked nearby.
When I pulled up in the lot, the suspect was already in the car, and the woman was screaming, "Help, help, he's got my car, help!" And he rushed off really quick and had the nerve to stop at the stop sign.
It was a gray Dodge Caravan parked in the front row of the lot. The driver, a woman, was not injured, but the suspect got away heading south on Beaubien before he ditched the van here at Concord and Lafayette. Now, Guy and Karen, you can see it seems to be business as usual where everyone is parked, going to work, going back to court. But I will tell you, we do have undercover officers here on the scene that we cannot show you who are still investigating part of this area. So we will continue to stay here on the scene. But again, we heard that that carjacking victim was safe. She was not injured. She actually went across the street to the old police headquarters where she was questioned by officers, where they tried to keep her calm. But so far, things seem to be back to normal here at the Metropolitan parking lot. Reporting live from downtown Detroit, Lauren Podell, Guy and Karen, back to you.
Can't even imagine parking your minivan, trying to get a little bit of work done, and that happens.
Thank goodness no children inside the minivan or anything like that. Lauren, thank you so much. And then a lot of concern about the sheriff's deputies with multiple puncture wounds to the neck. Only one needs to nick an artery,
Right.
and you would have had a much different outcome.
They do put their life on the line,
Yeah.
and sometimes people don't realize that in this situation. Let's go now to Ashley Barrissey. She is live at Detroit Receiving Hospital, where we understand that Betty Napoleon just arrived to check on the status of that deputy.
That's true, Karen. We arrived here shortly before 9 o'clock this morning, right after the deputy that had been stabbed was transferred here. He had already arrived before we got to the scene. Now, Sheriff Napoleon did arrive here about 15-20 minutes ago, walked right through these doors right behind me, and obviously visiting with that deputy. Now, he told Local 4 earlier that that the deputy had been stabbed in the neck but was doing fine. Now, sources are also confirming that that is the condition of the deputy. He should be fine as well. Right now, I can tell you that the scene around Detroit Receiving Hospital is very calm. There doesn't appear to be any extra police personnel, and that really has been the scene since about 9 o'clock. Nothing out of the ordinary. So we're going to continue to stay here and hope to catch Benny Napoleon, Sheriff Benny Napoleon, as he walks out those doors to get another update on that deputy that is inside. Reporting live outside of Detroit Receiving Hospital, Ashley Barrissey, back to you.
All right, we'll check back with you when you speak with Benny Napoleon. Let's go over to Lauren Padell. She just got an update on the discovery of an important piece of evidence. What happened here, Lauren?
Karen and Guy, just as we left you going live just in the last half hour, Michigan State Police detectives located and found not only the sheriff's deputy uniform that the escaped prisoner was wearing, but also the inmate outfit. It was here at the Metropolitan parking lot where we've been live all morning, and it was found stashed underneath this red SUV, which has been parked here since around 8 a.m. when we first arrived. Now, here's how Michigan State Police figured this out. They went into the Greektown Casino. They are still on the scene here, and they checked out the surveillance camera, which basically caught the entire carjacking incident that took place just several hours ago. They saw the man walking through the Metropolitan parking lot, Abraham Pearson, otherwise known as Derek White. He walked up in between this red Jeep and this pewter SUV you can see, and that's where he took off the inmate outfit, took off the sheriff's outfit, and threw it underneath this vehicle. Now again, Michigan State Police detectives just bagging both of those pieces of evidence up. We've had undercover officers throughout the morning. Right around 11 a.m. they started swarming this scene, and now we know why. Again, they're going to be investigating not only this carjacking and this evidence, but they're going to be looking at the surveillance video from the Greektown casino to lead them to more clues about Abraham Pearson's whereabouts. But again, two pieces of evidence right now in that police cruiser going back to be investigated. But again, Guy and Karen, the inmate outfit Abraham Pearson was wearing, along with the deputy's pants and shirt, found right underneath this red Jeep, and it just broke moments ago.
You were looking at brand new video of escaped prisoner Abraham Pearson being taken into custody.
Good evening. He was arrested less than an hour ago after spending the entire day on the run.
Detroit police arrested Abraham Pearson on the service drive at I-94 near Mount Elliott. Mara McDonald is live with the video of his arrest that you'll see only on 4. Mara?
Devin, Carmen, let me bring you up to speed. Sheriff Napoleon is with us right now, as well as Deputy Chief James Tolbert from DPD. Sheriff Napoleon, bring us up to speed.
At approximately 10 o'clock this evening, Abraham Pearson was found walking in the area of Mount Elliott and I-94. We were alerted to his presence by some citizens. We dispatched a car to the scene from the Detroit Police Department. After a short foot chase, he was arrested and brought back in custody.
Sheriff, I understand it was undercover officers from number 11. Did he give them a hard time? Did he
tried to escape again, but he was caught.
Is it believed that he was actually in the area earlier when he did receive the tip, or was that possibly a false tip?
We have been searching the city, following up lead after lead after lead. I believed all along and said all along that I thought he was on the east side of the city of Detroit, and that's where he was found.
How is your deputy tonight?
Our deputy is fine. To question anyone else in custody, we have made another arrest in relationship to this, but how connected it is at this point, we do not know. It was on an existing warrant.
Does that come from the two people that were detained on Burlingame?
No.
This was the girlfriend?
Yes.
And so was she able to help lead you to this individual?
We aren't going to talk about that. All the information that we have related to any assistance that we have will come out once he is arraigned.
Can you talk about any additional charges he will be facing?
He is facing, I believe, 11 additional charges. He is looking at a significant amount of time, including being a fourth offense habitual offender.
Deputy Chief Tolbert, can you bring us up to speed on how DPD played into this tonight? Because you guys have been all over the place tonight as well.
Well, it's been a concerted effort. Along with the Wayne County Sheriffs, we've had the Customs and Border Patrol, MSP, just a numerous, even Highland Park, numerous law enforcement agencies in the area. And I'm telling you, it's just when we come together when an officer is injured or at a crisis situation, and it culminated with Officers Keesley and Shepard, who did an outstanding job responding to the scene, pursuing this dangerous individual, and taking him into custody without any further incident. So it's hats off to all the law enforcement community in this area at this time.
When he was picked up, was he armed?
Not that we know of.
What kind of help do you think that he got on the outside once he left the minivan that he had carjacked?
I don't.
I'm sure that's going to be investigated.
You know, we made it very clear that anyone who was assisting him was looking at some very serious charges, and we were going to prosecute them as if they were involved in the assault on my deputy. So thanks to you and getting that information out early, we believe that he was not running into much success getting any help. I do want to add to, in addition to what Chief Talbot said, we had the FBI, Livonia PD, the ATF, Border Patrol, U.S. Marshals, and several other agencies that have...
Sheriff Napoleon bringing us up to speed on the situation and the ultimate takedown of Abraham Pearson, picked up along I-94 And Mount Elliott tonight, apparently he was walking along the service drive looking for a ride when an alert citizen called in the tip, called 911, and DPD undercover officers from number 11 responded. Carmen, Devin, back to you.
All right, Mara, we'll let you get back to the comments there from the sheriff and the police department. Again, though, his girlfriend also taken into custody tonight. We'll have to wait and see if these are truly connected although she was on an outstanding warrant, as Benny Napoleon just said. For ages, the tradition has been the same. The world's cardinals receive a message that says, the Pope has died, come at once. The Pope didn't die this time, he simply stepped down, but the message to the cardinals has been the same, and soon they'll begin the conclave to select a successor. Cardinal Adam Maida is too old to vote, but certainly not too old to be heard, and he's in Rome right now. Before he left, he sat down with me to talk about the challenges facing the Vatican, with Benedict stepping aside.
Obviously, it's brand new, right? 600 years. Yeah. But nonetheless, I think it made the best judgment in the context of the world today, his experience, and his own sense of well-being.
It was a stunner when Pope Benedict XVI announced that he was retiring. Retiring? It's not really a verb we use with popes. For the last 600 years, and frankly most years before that, popes have died in office. Cardinal Maida knows Pope Benedict well and knows he did what he felt was best for the church. We've had reports in Rome, of course, that all this happened as this sordid investigation was handed to him about all of this activity in the Curia. Do you buy that?
No, not at all. Problems come over your desk every day, you know, they come flying at you. And I think it's just the whole, everything coming together, he made the decision. One thing didn't trigger this.
One thing may not have triggered it, but this one thing, the resignation, has triggered many others. Some fear that Benedict's decision takes some of the divine mystique out of the papacy, that if you can just retire from it, then it must be merely a job rather than a heavenly guided ordination of the Vicar of Christ. But also, as the College of Cardinals convenes, they know they must find a guiding light to bring the church out of a dark, and to many, sinful era.
Church has a human side to it, and even the Lord, when he picked 12 of his best friends, one of them walked away and betrayed him. I mean, that was pretty gruesome too, wasn't it? And so this has happened, and as we read the scriptures, we've seen these human interactions between religious people and whatnot, but ultimately with the message that God gives us of loving one another, forgiving one another, being at peace with one another.
So, who to now create that peace in the church? Cardinal Maida is one of 90 cardinals too old to vote in the conclave, but much gets hashed out before the conclave begins in the general congregations, the more informal gatherings of all of the cardinals.
And then there are opportunities for individual conversations and groups, and it gets sifted out. It's just like there are an awful lot of ideas, but then ultimately every cardinal, having heard all of these possibilities, makes his choice. Yeah, I think it might be time for somebody from Africa or somebody from Asia or whatever.
But how much diversity of thought is there? More than half of the voting cardinals were appointed by Pope Benedict, the rest by John Paul II. American Catholics in particular who hope for some big changes in the church. Is that even possible?
Things will be different than they have been. Now, whether you'll call that a revolution or an evolution, I think those are two different words too. And there might be what we call just an accommodation to new realities.
Evolution has been the more standard practice for the church, but as they deal with everything from the sexual abuse scandals to priest shortages, when the white smoke appears from the papal chimney, the new pope won't have to find challenges. They'll be waiting for him. And I'll be there to bring you this extraordinary occasion. I hope you'll be with us all week for my coverage from the Vatican in Rome. Devin Skillion, Local 4. Well, Carmen and Steve, what a night here in Rome as the conclave ends after just 2 days, after 5 votes. And for a church that traces its lineage all the way back to St. Peter, through all of those centuries, it's not exactly easy to find firsts, and yet they found a way to plow some new ground tonight. The national flags of the presumed candidates for the papacy flew all over St. Peter's, and they flapped wildly when white smoke billowed from the telltale chimney. But when the Argentine appeared as the new pope, it seemed clear that the national flags fly under the flag of the Catholic Church.
And with the kind of grand theater that only the Vatican can provide, a friendly delirium greeted the first ever pope from Latin America, all the more fitting that he would carve his own path with his chosen name, Francis I.
He will have the grace to be a shepherd.
With such little advance notice of the change at the top of the church, many of those who filled the piazza just took a vacation and landed in history, like the discos of Saline, Michigan.
But you don't get to see the Sistine Chapel because I understand it's occupied.
No, we were a
So
little
busy.
disappointed, but rather see this. This is more of a historical moment for sure.
Cornerstone Schools founder Clark Durant just happened to pick this week to celebrate his 40th anniversary with his wife Susan.
Selection of the name Francis, very powerful. First Jesuit pope. And I think this is going to usher in a very exciting time for the church.
And is there any way of understanding what this means to Latin America, such a cornerstone of Catholicism now suddenly raised to the roof?
When I heard it was from Latin America, Argentina, tears come from my eyes. I mean, this is the only thing. I mean, it is so lucky to be here.
So emotional for so many people in so many different ways here tonight. All right, so the schedule now. We will hear the first words from the Pope to the media coming up on Saturday, his first papal news conference. The installation is scheduled for Tuesday of next week, but important to note that when he accepted the Cardinal's appointment as Pope, he is officially the Vicar of Christ tonight. From the Vatican, Devin Skillion, Local 4.
It is the world's smallest country. In fact, at 1/5 of 1 square mile, you can walk it in no time. And yet, the world's smallest country contains the world's largest church, St. Peter's Basilica, its dome towering above Rome, and its splendid square a mathematical marvel that is one of the world's truly great public spaces. And all of that splendor was designed and built for moments like this. The bones of St. Peter are believed to be beneath all of this marble and stone. And with more than 1 billion Catholics in the world, the search for his 266th spiritual heir does draw a crowd. And those who work here, like Carolina Ray of Bloomfield Hills, plan their days around the smoke signals.
This is the Catholic Super Bowl, and I want to be here for every minute of it.
It is odd that in this era of texting and Twitter, here we all stood, staring through the rain at a small copper chimney. But it's hard to imagine an email blast generating this kind of energy. Beneath flags from all over the world, the Catholic family, so often torn apart and separated by doctrine and disagreement, was reminded of the tie that binds. So you stand without much complaint, and you wait and wait while you wonder at what is happening inside.
I can tell you, it's a strange feeling, especially having been in a conclave before.
Here's a man who knows. You'd have to believe Cardinal Adam Maida only feels more qualified 8 years after having voted in the last conclave. But only cardinals under the age of 80 are allowed to vote. He knows of the quiet contemplation in the Sistine Chapel and the reality that it takes a special cardinal to even want the papacy draped across his shoulders.
No matter to whom it happens, there's a surprise. I think there's none of us feel like we're worthy of that. In fact, we in many ways fear the work because it's almost beyond human abilities to address the challenges of the day.
Oh, and there are plenty of those. The church is still pockmarked by deep wounds caused by the sex scandals in the priesthood, the reports of a Roman curia that is out of control, and a Vatican bank that has been tied to money laundering and gangsters and yet has long resisted closer inspection. Add to that shortages of priests, declining Catholic allegiance in key parts of the world, and you wonder, can one man come in and change it? And can it be a 76-year-old pope who has seemed to prefer street-level work to top-down governance?
Habemus Papam.
I believe the line is, "You had me at hello." Barely a moment after the new pope appeared, whatever ecumenical divisions that might have existed in the crowd seemed to go up with the white puffs of smoke. As a non-Catholic, it was impossible for me not to feel the profundity of the moment. A moment awash in firsts. The first Latin American pope, the first Jesuit pope, and the first Pope Francis in honor of St. Francis of Assisi, which went over like a thick, warm blanket on a chilly, rainy night.
It was crazy. Everybody was chanting. Everybody was really excited.
It was just chaos. We came on the metro. You could barely move. Everyone was just running to get in the square. It was like the most exciting thing I've seen in Rome.
A couple of Detroit seminarians were getting a master class in conclave studies, and what better way for priests in training to see the church they wish to serve come so alive, with every corner of St. Peter's packed to the brim. Not that that stopped them.
We were planning our lives around getting over there. I set my umbrella so I could grab it on the run right after evening prayer, right after leaving the chapel. And we ran down there, we pushed our way toward the front. And when the white smoke came, we shut our umbrellas, we ducked under everyone else's umbrella and worked our way. We were literally 3 rows from the front.
Is that priestly behavior?
We didn't push anyone, we just kind of, just worked our way up.
It was such an amazing experience for all of us gathered together in prayer, in faith, united under our shepherd, who is Pope Francis.
The start of a historic papacy in a number of ways with the ascension of Cardinal Francis, and yet no Detroiter was able to vote on that. Over the last couple of years, Detroiters have had a lot of influence at the Vatican. Cardinal Maida voted in the last conclave, so did Cardinal Sciacca, and in fact Cardinal Sciacca here in Rome rose to almost heroic status for the way that he helped reorganize the Holy See. Cardinal Maida believes it's time for Detroit to have a cardinal again.
I don't know when or how, whatever, but nonetheless, I think the needs and the work that's being done in Detroit still deserves to have that kind of leadership. And when you're a cardinal, you're not just a cardinal for the city or the state. Remember, when you're a cardinal, you come with certain gifts that are necessary in the mind of the Holy Father in helping him in his service to the whole world.
And that whole world suddenly felt much smaller that night, a night when the old church celebrated a reach into the new world. And the new world felt an emotional and rich welcome centuries in the making.
It is the first time we have a Pope from Latin America, and it's so.
What does that mean to you?
Well, I am Mexican, so for me, that means so. That means so. It's not only the beginning for me of a new era. I don't know if you know the background of this gentleman. I believe that he is going to do really something that we need right now. I mean, he's going to provide us hope in the future, hope in the world needs this guy.
This is one of those stories that just makes you mad. Detroit should be saving money, not wasting money. Plus, your water bills have gone up 10 straight years in a row. The defenders found an expensive problem that should be easy to fix. In abandoned houses and buildings all across Detroit, copper thieves steal water meters and pipes for money. The thefts cause water to pour out into basements, and it's not the water department's fault that thieves steal copper. But it is their fault if they don't come out and shut off the water once people report it. A guy living near Bentler Street says he's been calling the water department about this house for over a year. We came here to check out what our tipster was telling us. Obviously, he was right. Water just pouring into this basement. We called the water department, but so far, no one has come.
Whoever's in charge of the water department needs to be aware of that. Supervisors, management, or their upper management. And we shouldn't be charged. The citizens of the city should not be charged for that.
We wanted to see exactly how much water was being wasted. In an unscientific test, we measured how long it took to fill up a 5-gallon bucket, and we're surprised it was full in just 54 seconds. The water is a foot deep in this basement. Thousands of additional gallons have poured into the ground, eroding the foundation the house sits on. Running water can cause all kinds of expensive problems, from mold to structural instability. Plus, we're just wasting water here. I wanted to report some running water. So we picked up the phone and called the water department ourselves to report the problem. We didn't say we were the local 4 defenders, just concerned citizens worried about the running water. That was on May 29th. We were assured someone would come right out. They did not. So we called again and again. It's now been 5 weeks since we first called the Detroit Water Department to tell them water was pumping in this basement. We measured it at 7,000 gallons a day. That's 250,000 gallons since our first call.
So how would you have water in an abandoned house that's on? Doesn't make sense. So it's negligence on the water board's part.
Finally, a month and a half after the problem was first reported, the water was shut off on Bentler Street. Did I tell you we also reported this water leak inside of the old Finney High School? We called on this one a month ago, and as you can see, the water's still running. Before you say, oh, that's just Detroit, open up your water bill. It's gone up 10 years in a row, totaling more than a 100% increase. waste gets paid for by the users. That's you.
It makes me very angry to think or to, hear that they're just letting it run like that.
I had got a couple of bills here for $235 a month because the water was running in this one particular house to the point where it flooded the basement, was coming out of the side door.
If in fact they have the information, they're aware of it, and nothing is being done, you would want to know why.
I don't know anything about Murrow, City, or the East Side.
Metro Detroiters deserve better. We went to the water department to get answers.
This is one of those organizational disconnects that we're trying to fix with optimization.
Sue McCormick is the boss. She researched the problems we reported, found systemic problems, and now has a 5-point action plan to fix it.
This week we're putting 4 new pieces of equipment in the East Yard, so I think that will help tremendously.
She points out the department has been advertising its emergency number. When we called the customer service line, we were on hold for more than 20 minutes.
Please continue to hold, and your call will be answered in the order received.
When we called the emergency number, we talked with an employee right away.
We know that there are a number of abandoned homes, so we really need the public to help us make sure that those reports get to us.
Now the water department will go to just one phone number, so there no longer is any confusion. The water department is promising to do a better job of responding quickly. They also will investigate to see why reports like this one are falling through the cracks. I'm sure they'll come and fix this one immediately now that everyone knows exactly where it is. If you see water running, report it. If they don't fix it, call the Defenders. Kevin Dietz, Defenders.
It's the start of a new day at Camp Mishitonki in Holly, Michigan. The skies are gray. But not even Mother Nature dares to rain long on this parade.
1, 2, 3, all
Not that a little rain would stop these kids.
My name is Tommy, I'm 12 years old, and I have a heart transplant.
My name is Tieran Leek. I am 9 years old, and I had a kidney transplant.
My name is Jaywan, I'm 12 years old. I got me a kidney transplant, and I'm happy for it.
Over here! Hello! Hello! Oh my God!
For the 100 campers at Camp Mishitonki, just being here is a victory.
Well, what's special about this camp is it's only for kids who have had transplants. You feel like everyone's the same as you, you kind of fit in more.
Here, no one questions a scar, no one makes fun if you need a break. They understand, they know.
My name is Sam Schnepp. I'm 13 years old and got a liver transplant.
I'm Joshua. I'm 15 and I have a kidney transplant.
I'm Jacob Branchell, 16-year-old, and I had 2 kidney transplants.
Most kids say the zip line is their favorite activity, including Jacob Branshaw. Born with a spinal defect, Jacob has never been able to run, but here he can fly.
You ready? On tight, here you go.
It was amazing. Just the adrenaline rush. I love being here. I love just being one of the campers, being able to do all this stuff. It gives people a chance to do everything that other kids get to do at camp.
Yes, there's a blood pressure check here and there and a packet of pills to swallow with dinner, but watching them play, it's easy to forget what they've been through. They're all just so normal.
My name is Takayla. I am 9, and I have a liver transplant. My name is Caroline Brown. I'm 8 years old, and I have a liver transplant.
My name is Sydney. I'm 10 years old, and I had a heart transplant.
But stop for a moment and think. Each smile, each laugh, each hug represents someone who wanted to help someone else live. And boy, do these kids live.
My name is Abigail Uranga. I am 17 years old, and I received a liver transplant.
My name is Jacob Ferrara. I am 23 years old. I had a liver transplant 20 years ago.
I'm Tucker Schumacher. I am 20 years old.
I had a liver transplant when I was 14 months old, and I am a counselor here at Camp Mishatanki 2013.
Many of the counselors are former campers, hoping to give the little ones hope for a bright future.
A lot of counselors say, the kids go up to them and ask them, what kind of transplant did you have? What did you have? And it's kind of cool for me to be able to, lift up my shirt and show the big scar and go, I had a liver. Oh, you did too? Yeah.
The staff are all volunteers, most using their own vacation time to make this possible. Paid in the smiles of kids given a second chance.
I thank God every day that I was given the opportunity from a little girl who passed away, and I really hope I can make the best of it and make her parents proud like they would want.
And as the day draws to a close and campers gather for s'mores and sleeping outdoors,
There we go.
it's clear this is what the gift of life is all about.
You're watching Local 4, home of ClickOnDetroit.com. WTIV Local 4 News at 5 starts now.
Any reaction at all?
Kwame Kilpatrick, stunned and speechless.
Not at this time. I don't have any comment.
Guilty of racketeering, extortion, and that's not all. His buddy, Bobby Ferguson,
It's a temporary situation.
also guilty, but maintaining his faith.
God is good all the time. My faith ain't changed now.
While Father Bernard Kilpatrick escapes with just one conviction and continues standing by his son.
What about your son taking millions of dollars from our city? What about Bobby Ferguson?
He didn't take a dime.
He didn't take a dime? He was found guilty, sir.
Kwame didn't take a dime.
This afternoon, the last time we'll see Kwame Kilpatrick and Bobby Ferguson as free men for many years.
That's right. It tops our news at 5. It was their last taste of freedom because late this afternoon, a federal judge ruled they'd be held in custody until their sentencing. They were taken to Milan this afternoon. Now, the only one who remains free is Bernard Kilpatrick. He was only found guilty on one charge, but the jury found Kwame Kilpatrick guilty on 24 of 30 counts, and Bobby Ferguson guilty on 9 of 11. The entire Local 4 News team is covering this breaking story from every angle. We begin right now with Local 4 defender Kevin Dietz. Kevin, quite a day here today.
Kwame Kilpatrick handcuffed in the courtroom and hauled off to prison, convicted on 24 separate felony counts that will put him in prison for 15 to 20 years. His sentence started today. Kwame Kilpatrick had it all. Detroit's youngest mayor ready to make his mark. Keys to the Manoogian Mansion, a private security detail, and over $150,000 a year in salary. It wasn't enough. Kwame Kilpatrick wanted more, much more. Private jets, walking around money, trips to Vegas, and $4,000 suits. To get it, he extorted businesses, saying pay up or no work. They paid up, giving the mayor hundreds of thousands of dollars in bribes, clothes, and vacations. It still wasn't enough. Kilpatrick demanding huge donations to his civic fund, supposedly for the kids of Detroit. The only kids who benefited were his own, with free camps. Kwame used the Kilpatrick Civic Fund for vacations with his girlfriend, vacations with his family, golf clubs, yoga, and more. Still not enough. He made his fundraiser, Emma Bell, cough up half her commissions, hundreds of thousands of dollars in kickbacks. Today, the jury said, that's enough. Guilty, guilty, guilty. 24 times they said guilty to racketeering, extortion, wire fraud, tax evasion. The convictions carrying a penalty of 20 years. Kilpatrick looked like he was run over by a truck as he came out of the courthouse. Mr. Kilpatrick.
How you feel?
What do you have to say, sir?
Everybody back.
Your wife in here?
How you
Gotta
feel?
go back. Any reaction at all?
Not at this
Everybody needs to go back. You admit it now, Quan? 5, 6, 7.
time. Not at this time. I don't have any comment.
But the judge wasn't finished. At a bond hearing just hours later, she said, close call, but there's too much missing money. Kwame's lied too many times to the courts, to probation officers. Bond is denied. Take the prisoner into custody. Kilpatrick took off his sport coat, took off his cufflinks, handed his driver's license to his mother, put his hands behind his back, and was handcuffed and hauled away. His attorney, Jim Thomas.
It's judicial discretion. The standard is very high. The case law is against us.
There was no outcry from supporters, just sadness that the kid, with all that potential, threw it all away, ripping off taxpayers for millions in much-needed city money to live large like the hip-hop mayor nickname he was given. Kwame Kilpatrick left the courthouse in handcuffs. He is already down at Milan Prison, where he will stay until sentencing day. He then will stay there likely in that same prison for the remainder of his sentence, which is 15 to 20 years. There was no celebration here around the courthouse. Nobody was clapping or cheering that Kilpatrick was convicted. There also is no outcry from Kilpatrick's supporters that he was wronged in some way. Most everybody sort of just sighing and looking at this at the end of a very long and ugly chapter in the history of Detroit, hoping for better days ahead. Reporting live at the federal courthouse, Kevin Dietz, Defenders.
Now, Kevin, we were watching this, I know, pretty much throughout the entire day, and we didn't get a sense that perhaps Jim Thomas had not prepared Kwame Kilpatrick for the stunning guilty verdicts that he received today.
Well, he came in today hoping for an acquittal. That did not happen. He knew it was a possibility that he would be convicted for sure. I'm not sure that he thought he would be sent to prison immediately. Right. It's very rare for corruption cases to end this way, where the guilty party is locked up and sent to prison immediately. Usually they are allowed to go free and spend time with their family. That judge saying it was a close call, but in this case, there's just too many questions, too much of a possibility that Kilpatrick and Bobby Ferguson might try and flee the country. She was not going to allow that to happen. She ordered them locked up today, and that's the way this story came to a tragic end.
Yeah. Thank you, Kevin.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Well, Kwame Kilpatrick's longtime friend, and we can now say partner in crime, will also remain in custody. After the verdicts, Bobby Ferguson maintained his innocence, saying it's not over yet. But both Ferguson and Kilpatrick today, it marked the end of the road. Let's get to Local 4 defender Karen Drew for a look at the case against Bobby Ferguson. Karen?
You know, Carmen, when you take a look at the case of Bobby Ferguson, it is similar to Kwame Kilpatrick. He started out as a minority contractor in the city. He took part in construction of Comerica Park, Ford Field, volunteered to tear down abandoned houses to make the city better. That's not what the jury believed, though, about this man. They believed he did take part in steering some $83 million in contracts towards his company, Ferguson Enterprises. And now Bobby Ferguson sits in prison. As Bobby Ferguson made his way into court this morning, he wasn't talking much except to quote Bible verses.
My statement is from the Bible.
Okay.
Psalms 37, verses 1 through 40. Read that. That's my statement.
He seemed confident and strong when walking into the courtroom. He actually high-fived some inside. But once the verdict was read, the mood changed. The contractor was found guilty of 9 of 11 counts, including extortion, bribery, and racketeering. He could be sentenced up to 20 years. Jurors believe Ferguson and Kilpatrick took part in an intricate scheme of extorting those who did business in the city of Detroit for their financial gain.
They looked at each piece of evidence individually and each count individually, and they made their decision accordingly, and we have to live with that. Even though, you know, we respectfully disagree, it is what it is.
Walking out of court, a rush of reporters surround the longtime Kilpatrick friend and contractor. He again doesn't talk, except to quote a Bible verse again.
God is good all the time.
During the bond hearing later in the day, the prosecution stated Ferguson was a flight risk. He had $83 million in ill-gotten gains, had pistol whipped someone in the past, traveled to South Africa, Ghana, and Saudi Arabia, and could not be trusted to be out on bond and was a flight risk. The judge agreed. When the marshals approached Kilpatrick and Ferguson, both men took their jackets off, belts and cufflinks off as well. Kilpatrick took his license out of his pocket, handed it to his mother, and said to Ferguson, quote, "We won't need this where we are going." And that is right. When speaking to Ferguson outside of court, he mentioned numerous times Bible verses. When speaking to his attorney, he said he has a strong faith, and now he must rely on that faith for the next questionable amount of years. Of course, we'll have to wait until sentencing day. Back to you.
Now, Karen, when you talked with Bobby Ferguson earlier in the day, he said it's not over yet. What do you think he meant by that?
You know, it's interesting. I really believe that he didn't feel that he would be found guilty. And then when he was found guilty, he didn't feel that he would be sent to jail. You know, obviously there's talk of whether or not there would be an appeal, but it's just this strange aura that they still feel like they're not giving up. So, I mean, that's all I can surmise. You you know, is that perhaps maybe his hope of an appeal, but insiders tell me that would be quite unlikely.
And certainly premature on a day like today. Our Karen Drew reporting for us live. Thank you, Karen. Well, Bernard Kilpatrick faced a total of 4 charges, the most serious being racketeering conspiracy. The jury was unable to reach a verdict on that count, but he was found not guilty of attempted extortion in connection to a sludge contract.
Well, Bernard was on a roll early, also found not guilty of filing a false tax return in 2004. But the jury did find Bernard Kilpatrick guilty of having a false tax return in 2005. That was his one and only conviction. After the verdicts were announced, Bernard Kilpatrick made no mention of his own fate, but maintained his son Kwame's innocence.
Mr. Kilpatrick, your reaction today to those not guilties and non-decisions? You said you felt good going out. How do you feel now?
Terrible.
Terrible for your son?
Absolutely.
Yes. You think the jury got it wrong?
Absolutely.
What about your son taking millions of dollars from our city? What about Bobby Ferguson?
He didn't take a dime.
He didn't take a dime? He was found guilty, sir.
Kwame didn't take a dime.
Then who took the money? Yeah, you were found guilty, sir. Any comment?
So tonight, while Kwame Kilpatrick is in federal prison, Bernard Kilpatrick will remain free until his sentencing. A date for that hearing has not yet been set.
Well, joining us now is U.S. Attorney Barbara McQuaid and Bob Foley, a special agent in charge of the Detroit Division. You heard Father Bernard Kilpatrick coming out of after the verdicts were read and saying Kwame didn't take a dime. How do you respond to that?
Well, the jury has responded, I think, in their verdict. The jury found the defendants guilty on some of the most serious charges. Kwame Kilpatrick, the evidence showed that he took $840,000 of unexplained income into his bank accounts. That's what we can account for. It also shows that he sent $83 million worth of extorted contracts to Bobby Ferguson. So I submit that the jury has answered that question, that he took a lot more than a dime.
All right. And Bob, your thoughts on the stunning verdicts today? Guilty on the most serious of charges?
Guilty on the most serious of charges, and the right result. We worked diligently between all of the investigators and the prosecution team to ensure the right result was reached, and all the evidence pointed to what the jury found, and that is guilty.
In putting this case together, what surprised you most? Did the text messages, the volume of text messages that were available to you or to the government, did that assist you in putting this case together?
It certainly did. You know, a case like this relies on a lot of different pieces coming together. Certainly cooperating witnesses were an important part of the case, people who were part of that inner circle who could explain what happened. But I think that jurors look for corroboration when you have cooperating witnesses. And so the text messages, the bank records, and the invoices, I think all were very important to bringing it all together.
Now, Kwame Kilpatrick and Bobby Ferguson both insist that the government got it wrong, that they are innocent men. But yet, you said the jury said and felt differently. Where is the money, do you think?
Well, we found $840,000 in Kwame Kilpatrick's bank account that he couldn't account for, $500,000 in Bernard Kilpatrick's bank account that he couldn't account for, $1.2 million in a safe in Bobby Ferguson's office. So that's some of the money. Whether there's more money out there, I can't say, but certainly it cost the taxpayers of the city of Detroit at least that much.
And Bob, any more money out there?
We're always looking. Of course, we certainly know that the stuff we have identified and the funds we have identified, we're working on seizing, and we'll work diligently on the rest.
And for the citizens of Detroit, is this really over?
Well, the case against Kwame Kilpatrick is really over. We'll continue to look for public corruption wherever it may lie. And so we just hope that today's case is not so much about the past, but about the future, and puts all of our public officials on notice that they're here to serve the people, not themselves.
All right. Barbara McQuaid, Bob Foley, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Carmen.
Thank you.
All right. Steve?
And what a long path it has been to get here. Remember way back in September, that's when this trial started. There were actually 4 defendants. Maybe you recall this guy, water boss Victor Mercado. He was right in the center of it for a time. He was charged with conspiracy. He was accused of taking bribes, but he wasn't part of it very long. About a month into the trial, he pleaded guilty. So what happens with him? Well, he is still awaiting sentence, and he could face up to 18 months in prison.
And we've got an entire section on clickondetroit.com. It's dedicated to the Kilpatrick guilty verdict. We've got reaction and certainly the next steps. You'll find the special coverage box on the home page. It's filled with information. And our coverage of the Kilpatrick trial verdict continues just ahead. They lived and breathed the Kilpatrick trial for more than 5 months of their lives, and coming up, what the members of the jury are saying about the verdict and how they came to their decision.
And delivering balloons to his mother's house, shouts of support from the streets. We'll see who continues to stand by Kwame Kilpatrick. That's when we come back.
Shortly after the Kilpatrick corruption trial verdict, members of the jury were seen getting dropped off in a parking lot, going to their cars and taking off. And tomorrow, when they wake up, they won't have to worry about heading to the courthouse for testimony or deliberations. Their service to the city is over.
Many, many months of hard work for those people. They did a good job. Several members of the jury did speak behind closed doors about the verdict and how they reached it. Joining us now live is local court defender Hank Winchester. Hank?
Steve Carmen, I'm sorry, the audio cut out here. I'm sorry as you were introducing this piece here. Let me talk to you about this. It was very interesting to hear from the men and women of the jury, whether you agree or disagree with how things played out today. One thing is for sure, the men and women of this case were very dedicated. They showed up every day on time. They say they all took the judge's orders very seriously, not to pay attention to local media, and also to pay attention to the facts and the evidence of this case. And that is what they said they did. The jurors spoke when they delivered the verdict and then spoke in the courtroom afterwards to the media, answering questions for almost an hour, taking us further inside the case than we've ever been before. Watching these men and women interact with each other was impressive. It is clear they have great respect for each other. They were asked a variety of questions about the witnesses and the verdict. When asked if any witness or piece of evidence stood out, juror number 9 said, "We looked at the evidence as a whole. There wasn't one piece of evidence that sealed the deal." When asked if it was hard to avoid all the media coverage, juror number 1 said, "For me, it wasn't a big temptation. We were given rules and we followed those rules." When asked what message the verdict sends, juror number 12 said, "If you want to do something illegal, a jury will make the correct decision." Juror number 11 said she had previously voted twice for Kwame Kilpatrick and said this about the case. She said, "I wouldn't call it anger. I would call it disappointment. I saw a lot of evidence that turned my stomach. I couldn't believe this was going on." She went on to say, "I feel bad for the children. I don't feel bad for any of the defendants." And that message echoed by many of the men and women that were on this jury. One other thing they were asked whether the presence of Carlita Kilpatrick and the Kilpatrick children in the courtroom during closing arguments, whether that played a role in their decision-making process. And all of the jurors responded by saying, no, not at all. Again, they were told to look at the facts and the evidence in this case, and they say that is exactly what they did in handing down this verdict. We're live here. Hank Winchester, back to you.
All right, and their job is over. Our Hank Winchester reporting for us live. Thank you, Hank. Well, Governor Snyder released a statement a short time ago regarding the corruption trial verdicts.
Yeah, the governor says, quote, "This is an unfortunate chapter in the city's history that is now closed. It's time to turn the page. The law enforcement and legal systems have done their jobs. We all need to focus on working together and helping move Detroit forward and being strong and successful again." Mayor Bing also released a statement. He says, "I am pleased that this long trial has ended and we can finally put this negative chapter in Detroit's history behind us. It's time for all of us to move forward with a renewed commitment to transparency and high ethical standards in our city government."
Well, there's much more ahead as we cover the Kilpatrick guilty verdicts and reaction. Coming up at 5:30, the impact this case has had on the city, and hear from some of Kwame Kilpatrick's family members now speaking out. Then at 6, a look at the rise and fall of Kwame Kilpatrick, a once promising young politician now headed to prison for likely a very long time.
I'm Chuck Gatica. Temp isn't bad, but we're still plenty drippy out there. 50 degrees, the current reading, 96% relative humidity, and currently we still have rain around. Doppler radar shows what's going on. We are seeing the rain end from southwest to northeast, but still some splotches of moderate to heavy shower activity out there. So we're not done yet. Tonight, overnight, it's mostly rain, although late we could see a few wet snowflakes mix in. Tomorrow, colder with flakes flying and still a chill. Get a load of these numbers for the day. High temp has hit 56 after midnight. 49 has been the low so far, so no matter how you look at it, there are the averages. We've been mild all the way around, even though we've been drippy. Temps now are mid-40s to near 50 as we go wide. Back out here, there it is. You can see the colder air, 30s, even some 20s, and a lot of that chilly air is going to wrap back in. There's a little stripe of snow shower activity. There's another one, all with this counterclockwise circulation around low pressure, so the moisture is pulling out. Computer model does a pretty good job showing that. There's the low now. Rain pulls out in the next couple of hours, but rotating around, not just overnight into the day tomorrow. Scattered snow showers, most of it light, but you thought we were done. Not quite yet. Nighttime low tonight gets us down to about 32 degrees, so we could still get a wet snow shower in there late. Daytime tomorrow, periodic snow showers as the colder air comes across the Great Lakes. 37 for the high. That's all we get. Most of this stuff's going to melt, even though it's light. And as we head for the next couple of days, notice temps go down for a couple days, and then they start meandering back up to near the averages. So all in all, not bad. But what a past couple of days when it comes to temperature. You know, it wasn't always dry, but it sure has felt good.
Yeah, it sure did.
Spring is in the air.
Yeah.
What do you think? Well, coming up.
New at 6.
Book bags are usually filled with school supplies, but something a local 6th grader was packing had the school calling police.
Yeah, now it wasn't a weapon, but it was still pretty troubling for the people involved.
And our coverage of the Kwame Kilpatrick guilty verdicts continues. New at 6, the emotional scene playing out inside the courtroom that you haven't heard about. You know, you could feel it throughout the city as the guilty verdicts were handed down to Kwame Kilpatrick and the co-defendants.
And as it was felt here in Detroit, it was also heard around the nation and really around the world.
And Ruth joins us now. And Ruth, the verdicts made national headlines today, didn't they?
Yes, they did, and some international headlines as well. Carmen and Steve, this Kilpatrick case is making headlines on almost every news website that we've checked. Sometimes big and bold on the home page, but other times tucked away in a corner. Either way, these verdicts are a topic of conversation outside this area. This headline at the Huffington Post reads, Kwame Kilpatrick guilty. Former Detroit mayor found guilty in federal trial. The Washington Post headline reads, jury convicts ex-Detroit mayor Kwame Kilpatrick of racketeering, conspiracy, corruption. And at the New York Daily News, disgraced former Detroit mayor Kwame Kilpatrick convicted of corruption charges, ensuring return to prison. And then across the pond at the UK Daily Mail, a lot more detail. This one reads, ex-Detroit mayor convicted of corruption after he stole nearly $1 million and spent cash from charity for needy city residents on yoga lessons, golf clubs, and travel. So our ex-mayor is both famous and infamous tonight all around the world.
And who says that people are not interested in what goes on in the Motor City, huh? Not only here on our side of the pond, but across the pond as well.
Yeah, well, they were also such sweeping charges, you know, and RICO is so hard to prove, very hard to prove, and they did it, yeah.
We so need to move away from this as a city, don't we?
And
oh, boy.
Now we can.
Thank you, Ruth. Yeah, now we can.
All right, you're welcome.
We have much more coming up after the break, including some other local headlines.
An update, for example, on the West Bloomfield grandmother on trial accused of killing her grandson, what drug investigators say the teen used shortly before his killing.
And a plane high above downtown Detroit with a very specific message for Kwame Kilpatrick, who was behind this stunt.
And next, the impact his trial and now guilty verdict has had on the city of Detroit. We'll be back after this.